Welcome today as we consider parables. Today I want to share a modern day parable. Jesus told parables. It was a story, and in the story there was a truth that he wanted the listeners to discover. And sometimes when he told a parable, he gave the interpretation of the story, like in the sower and the seed. Other times when he told parables, he gave no interpretation. And it was for the listeners to discover what was the truth in the story for them. Let me tell you about a modern day parable. It's a parable about two jigsaw puzzles, his and mine. In our jigsaw, we have a box, and inside the box are 1,000 pieces. And on the outside of the box is a picture of the completed puzzle, which is really very helpful. Now, my strategy in doing a puzzle is to find all the edge pieces, the straight edge pieces, and I put them together first, and then I know what shape and size the puzzle is, whether it's square or oblong. That all those pieces in the box will fit into that square or oblong shape. Another strategy I use, having discovered the outside boundaries, is I gather together groups of colours, clusters that I put together so that later on I can add these smaller groups to the larger picture. We all have different approaches and strategies to help us complete the picture. The most exciting thing is when I only have 20 pieces left of this 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, I know that in a few minutes I will complete the puzzle. Of my 1,000 pieces, there's a sameness about shape and size. Yes, pieces have different colours on them, but there's half a dozen different shapes that are very similar or are the same. There might be a slight variation, but they repeat themselves. They're clones. They have the same DNA. That's our jigsaw, complete. Let's now look at God's jigsaw. In God's jigsaw, there's no box with pieces in. And seeing there's no box with pieces in, there's no picture to copy from. But God has given us enough pieces to go on with, to add to the existing picture. Another thing is this. I realize there's no straight edges of boundary pieces in God's puzzle. We don't have all the pieces at present. But God gives us more as needed to add to the existing picture. Because we don't have all the pieces, and there's no straight edge pieces for a boundary, we don't know how near we are to completing the puzzle. And the shape and the size of the pieces are different from our puzzle. There's no sameness. There's no clones. Everything God makes is original. There's no copies. There's no clones, both of humans and of nature. Every piece and person, original, unique, even unusual. Whoever has eyes to see and ears to listen with and minds to discern and understand, learn the lessons from the jigsaw puzzles. Trust the Creator of the universe to build His church and expand His kingdom on earth. As we consider the meaning and interpretation of the jigsaw puzzles, consider these 4 words: strategy, time, events, and people. And that maybe will help us understand the story of the puzzles. Firstly, strategy. Our strategy is to complete the picture independently or with the help of others. With God's puzzle, the immediate task is about participation, not completion. With our puzzle, when we only have 20 pieces left, we know we've just about completed the jigsaw puzzle. With God's puzzle, with no boundary edge, and with God providing more pieces as needed, we don't know how near we are to completion. We cannot complete the picture because we don't have all the pieces. With God's puzzle, I need the help of others to complete the picture. Secondly, timing. It's about participation, not completion. Now, there is a time when God's puzzle will be complete, and it may or may not be in our lifetime. In our curiosity and impatience, we want to know when is the time of completion. Our clocks are usually fast. The question is not about time, it's about trust. He says, trust me. I am in control. We need to exchange time for trust. God only knows the time, and we must trust him. Be content to participate and let go the strong desire for completion. It can only be completed when all the pieces are in the right place in God's time. In Acts 1, verses 6 and 7, the disciples asked Jesus, Lord, when are you going to restore the kingdom of Israel? And Jesus said, it's not for you to know the time or the dates the Father has set by his authority. Thirdly, events. Events happen locally, nationally, internationally. And we endeavour to interpret their significance in our present time. We are tempted to give a significance and a value to them that they are not entitled to. We can misinterpret both their meaning and significance in the overall picture of the puzzle. They are just one small piece in a much larger picture of the puzzle. In 1 Peter 1:11, we read these words. The prophet searched intently and with the greatest of care, trying to find out the time and the circumstances by which the Spirit of God in them was pointing when they predicted the sufferings of Christ. Both the time and the circumstances. Lastly, people. Whether it's a Pharaoh or a Moses, or a Mandela or Putin, they are part of the puzzle. History tells us that we haven't always understood the roles and importance of some people in history. For good or for evil, they have a place in history, and they have an influence long after they've died. In trying to understand and participate in God's puzzle, consider those 4 words: strategy, time, event, and people. As we consider the future, which is what the puzzle is about, let me describe to you something of the future. Firstly, there is a future. We have a future. The future will be different from the past. The future will take longer than you think to come to pass. The future is bigger than we realize. The future will include me and you and them, whoever the them is. The future will include the past, the present, and the expanding future. The future will cost. in time, in money, and in trust. Trust in God and trust in each other. What does the church of God and the kingdom of God look like in the future? Eyes to see, ears to hear, and minds to understand the meaning of the jigsaw puzzle, of God's jigsaw puzzle. Consider some of the mistakes we make in participating in God's jigsaw puzzle. I can give up too soon and fail to participate and recognize what God is doing. I fail to recognize others and what God is doing in and through them. My independence refuses the help of others, gently forcing people together, but they don't actually fit in that place. Mindsets, a fixed mindset of what the future will look like. It's not about completing or competing. It's about participation. It can only be completed if we work together. Me, you, and them. Our clocks are generally fast. It may not be completed in my lifetime. If God put a picture on the outside of his box, a prophetic picture, would we recognize the people, the places, the times, the events? We need to walk with humility and allow God to provide the pieces as necessary. Eyes to see, ears to hear, and minds to understand the meaning of the jigsaw puzzle, of God's jigsaw puzzle.